Oh, there we go. So I've set it up now, so you should be able to see me in there as well. And as I say, any questions, please do add them on here, and I will do my very best to answer them. So again, just wait a few minutes to let everybody settle in. I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying the gorgeous weather we've had. It's been absolutely stunning. So yeah, unfortunately inside now, but we are in our lovely new shop, which I can tell you a little bit more about as we go through. So yeah. So I've got everything set up here. I'll go through everything that you need as well, but it should be really, really simple. Yeah, it should be a nice evening. So I hope everyone is looking forward to it. I'm just going to get my notes up ready as well. Lovely. So just waiting a few more moments to make sure everybody is up and running with the stream. And then we'll get going with the important bit, the gin tasting, the bit that we all want, the bit that we all are looking forward to. I am in the new shop, so I'm hoping, we've got the shutter half up, so I'm hoping, because there's a few people next door at the chip shop, nobody comes and knocks on the door or anything. If they do, I apologise. I might just have to go and run and let them know that we're not actually open, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully there won't be any distractions. So I believe everyone should have got their kits already. We've got 5 gins in total and 4 tonics to go through, which is great. We're hoping as well that we should have somebody from Cotswolds joining us a little later on in the stream. We should have Holly joining us. She's really great, depending if she manages to get it set up properly or not. But hopefully we'll have her joining as well a little bit later on, which will be lovely. So yeah, so I think we've got most people watching now, which is great. So I'm going to get started. So welcome to our virtual tasting. This is our second virtual tasting. We did one with Macmira Whiskey a couple of weeks back, which was really great fun. A little bit odd, I will be honest, because usually when we do a tasting, you know, we have you guys sat in front of us, we can go through everything. If you've got a question, you can just, you know, add it in. We can tend to see how people are reacting, see what they like, what they don't like. Whereas this sort of setup is a little bit odd. I'm obviously sat here talking to a screen, you guys are enjoying it at home. But it does mean that, you know, you can enjoy gin tastings and other tastings in the comfort of your own home, which is exactly what we want, really. So yeah, it's odd, but it's also quite nice as well, because I mean, you don't have to get up from the sofa. You can wear your pajamas if you like, or enjoy sitting outside and enjoying a nice evening. We will have a little pause at 8 o'clock as well, because I know that we've got the clap for carers. So if you do want to go outside and have clap, we'll have a little pause then as well for anybody that does, and then we'll resume a little bit, a few minutes afterwards, just to obviously show our respect. So I'll put together a little PowerPoint. We are hoping, Jeff is hoping that he can screen record it on our work laptop, and once we've done that, we hopefully will be able to upload it as a YouTube video. We know that the platform that we use to stream won't let us record it, but we might have got around it. So fingers crossed we'll be able to have it as a video. So if you miss anything, you can go back to it. If not, don't worry, I will do a full write-up, which I'll put up on our blog. So you can go back into there and have a look at it as well. And if you do want a copy of the PowerPoint, let me know. I can send it over via a WeTransfer link or something like that, or a PDF, whatever's easiest. Lovely. So let's get cracking. So welcome. A little bit about ourselves. For anyone that doesn't know, I know some people will be really familiar with us. Some people joined us on the whiskey tasting. Hello, you guys, if you did. But we've been going for about 7 years. We're quite a small team. There's 4 of us. Barry and Jeff, who own it. Barry's worked in the industry for God knows how many years, about 30 or so years, used to run odd bins. He's known Jeff throughout that period. I myself am Hannah, and I've worked in the industry for about 4, coming up to 5 years. not always in Sheffield, in Warrington as well. And then there's also Sarah as well, who's good friends with Jeff and Barry, and she does some sort of part-time bits and things like that as well. So yeah, relatively small team, but we all have a great passion and love for booze, which is what we need. We're happy to offer any advice as well. If you ever come in and you're thinking, I need a present for someone, I don't know what they like or whatever, we're always happy to offer advice, because to be perfectly honest, alcohol industry, ridiculous. There's so much to learn, but we'll always help where we can. And here today, we're in our new shop, which unfortunately hasn't been used as much as we would like it to. So we opened this just before Christmas really quietly. We're still waiting for some bits of furniture to come in. We were due to have a big opening in April when everything sort of got finished. Obviously, we went into lockdown, so that couldn't happen. But the idea of this room is that we'll be using it more as a tasting room when we're allowed to. As you can see, it's still got all the wine behind us, so we're still a shop in here as well. But it's a much more stripped back range in here. But yeah, it's a really lovely space that unfortunately we can't use at the moment. But it does make it perfect for things like this, because when we did the whiskey tasting, I did it from my flat, and there was a few distractions around, which I think probably didn't help. But no, it's a really lovely space, and we're really excited for when we can finally get people in and do tastings face to face again. We managed to do a couple before lockdown, some private ones, which went really well. So fingers crossed we'll be able to do those in the sort of coming future, perhaps sort of next year or so. And now on to the important bit that we're talking about, obviously gin. We're all big fans of gin. We've got about 120 or so in store, but we can get hold of all sorts of stuff. So if there's something you're after specifically, let us know. Same for wine and other spirits and any other things as well. So things you'll need for the stream. We'll need a lemon, a lime, and a grapefruit. And then also, if you've got 2 glasses, one for neat gin and one for mixing, so I've got 2 here. I have got a 3rd glass as well, so if you want to taste the tonic separately, that's always great, but it's not necessary. And then if you do have it, some fresh rosemary or bay leaf, but if not, don't worry. If you don't have any of these things as well, don't worry about it. They're only for garnishes, which sometimes finish off the gin nicely. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to change it all completely. So I know obviously we want to get to having a gin as well. So the first one we're going to go for is this one, the little jaw box mini. So if you want to open that, pour a little bit into one of your glasses, taste it neat, and then pour a little bit into another glass and have it with a mixer. And I think the mixer I've said to go with it was the Fentonums, I believe. So yeah, if you want to open that, well, I'll go through a bit of history of gin, and not too much history there. We're not going through a full history lesson, but a little bit of history. Yeah, and we'll go. But if you want to have that in the meantime whilst you're enjoying it. So yeah. So a few gin facts for you. Gin is a huge industry now. So in 2019, it saw sales worldwide rise to over £3 billion, which is crazy. I think at the end of 2018, it was something like 1.9 billion. So it's really, really gone up, surprisingly still going up as well. And you might think, wow, well, maybe I'm in the wrong job. Maybe I need to be making gin. That seems to be where it is. However, there is an awful lot out there. So in the UK alone, there's 422 distilleries, registered distilleries. Now, that doesn't mean to say there's 422 different gins. Not all of them make gin. Some of them are whiskey distilleries, etc. That does include Scotland as well. A lot of whiskey distilleries there. But to give you an idea, 422, that's an awful lot of registered distilleries in the UK alone. And that's gone up since 2018. So it was 361 in 2018. Gone up since then. And in 2018, it was the first time that England ever had more distilleries than Scotland. As you can see from the numbers on the screen, that in England we've got 228 and 186 in Scotland. That was as of last year in 2019. So it is a huge, huge industry. And you know, you can go into specialist dedicated gin shops, and there's thousands of things to choose from. But it's so popular because it is quite versatile. And I think that's one of the beauties with gin, because each gin will have its own unique flavour, its own unique style, they'll work to its own recipe. And each person has like their own, each gin distillery has their own sort of unique style, which is really nice. So as with vodka, you kind of get sort of straightforward, quite clean things, but gin, you've got a lot more to play with. There's a lot more sort of flavour in there. It is craft gin, the ones that we're sort of having tonight, it's a relatively new industry in terms of alcohol, in terms of industry. It's only been around for about 11 years or so, which we'll touch upon in a minute. And the first registered craft distilleries after the Gin Act was abolished was the likes of Sipsmith. In fact, Sipsmith was the first, I think, and people like Sacred as well. So it's a relatively new industry, which is, you think, wow, that's for the revenue they're making, that's quite impressive. But people love it, and we all love gin. So yeah. So, and then we've got a bit of history on it. Now, I won't go into too much detail because it's quite a long history. There's all sorts going on in it. But this picture here is a really, really famous one by William Hogarth. It's called Gin Lane and Beer Street. And this is a depiction of what the gin industry was like in the sort of 1600s, 1700s. And it wasn't pretty. So it's believed to have started in Belgium and then moved over to the Netherlands. Well, there's a bit of queries around that, a few queries. The Italians apparently believe they were the ones that started making gin first, but we believe it's around that area, so around the Netherlands. And Netherlands became a hotspot for Geneva, which is a gin-like spirit, similar sort of style, but it's usually a little bit more full-bodied, a little bit sweeter. And it made its way into the UK through the alliance that we had at the time with the Dutch. And we could be where we get the phrase Dutch courage from, because the soldiers used to have a little sip of the Geneva before they go into battle. And I think that's where it is. Don't put me on that. But the first gin craze happened back in the 1600s. So King William III was on the throne. He was a Dutchman himself. He had a very bitter dislike to France. So he put really heavy taxes on imports, meaning it was incredibly difficult to get hold of any wine or cognac from France. And he also gave everyone tax breaks in the UK. So they were allowed to make whatever they wanted, which, you think, that sounds great. I can make my own gin. But it meant that gin became cheaper than a pint of beer, which again, you think, great, perfect. However, it wasn't. People were using all sorts of terrible things. They were making their own bathtub gin, where they're just making a spirit. They're putting all sorts of weird things in it, things like turpentine and all that sort of stuff. And it became a drug for a lot of people. They used it as a type of escapism. Garnishes for the first gin, I would recommend some lime. Having a bit of lime with it, just a slice probably, but yeah. So it became a drug that people were hooked on it. They had to get their gin fix. So fast forward to the 1751, which is when the Gin Act was put in place. There were several before it, and this is when the government started realising that actually they needed to control this. But 1751 was the main one, which meant that there was a charge on both the production and the selling of alcohol, and the production had to be in greater quantities. And this act was only lifted in 2009. So up until then, you couldn't open a micro distillery and distill your own spirit or distill your own gin, because it was technically illegal under this law, even if you were doing it in, say, 2006. So it was only in 2009 that this was actually abolished and lifted, and hence we got the boom and the growth of our craft distilleries. But in between the years of it being lifted, it's quite interesting because you see some of the really big brands that sometimes you maybe discount or sometimes look at in the supermarket, and they're actually very historical. So things like Greenall's Gin, they were the first to register after the Gin Act in 1761, Gordon's in 1769, Plymouth Gin in 1793, and Hayman's as well in 1863, to name it. So some of those bigger companies are actually really, really historical. So it's quite interesting how they're sort of balanced. But yeah, a little bit of brief history for you there. And then we've got a little bit on the tonic as well. So tonic is probably equally as important as an industry. It's become a vast industry as well in its own right. The mixers, the idea of mixers for drinks as well. Originally, you probably would have thought just, good gin, any old mixer would do, but there's a lot of focus on the idea of having a really good mixer to go with a really good gin. Why not? If you're spending, say, £40 or so on a gin, you want something that's going to go really well with it and complement it. So Tonic itself comes from, it's made with quinine, which comes from the chinchilla tree. And that was nicknamed the fever tree because it used to have healing properties for malaria. So it used to heal the fever, which is where fever tree gets its name from. And the idea of a gin and tonic was used in the British Army. So with their malaria medicine, with the quinine they used as malaria medicine, they'd dissolve it into water because it was so bitter and just not nice to drink. They'd add in some sugar, some lemon and lime. They also got their gin rationed as well, add in the gin, and that was their gin and tonic. So yeah, that's how that came about. And we've got 4 tonics in total today. So we've got the Franklin one, we've got the Fentimans, we've got another Franklin's, the lemon tonic, and we've also got the Double Dutch as well. And they're all interesting different makes, and each makes, again, like gin, they've got their own sort of way of doing it. Fentimans is quite a historical brand, and they often brew botanicals into their tonic, so it gives it a slightly more herbal flavour. And I find the Franklin's really light. I don't find, sometimes some tonics I find the bubbles too heavy, and I find these ones nice and light. They're just really smooth. And then the Double Dutch is made by 2 twins, and that's got a little tiny bit of orange in it. But yeah, again, really, really nice and easy drinking. So we'll move on to our first gin, which is the Jawbox gin. So I've got mine neat in my glass here. So Jawbox gin, it's an Irish gin, and it takes its nickname from the Belfast sink. So the story is that the Belfast sink in Northern Ireland kitchens was the chatter, the place for chatting, like the hub, and it's also nicknamed a Jawbox. So they've taken that from there. It was founded by a guy called Jerry White in 2014, as I say, made in Belfast. So in here there was 11 different botanicals, including 3 secret ones. So quite classic styles of botanicals, and I've got some here, some bits and pieces. Now with gin, you have to obviously have juniper in it for it to be gin. So if it's not got juniper in it, it's flavoured vodka. But there's also other quite classic gin botanicals as well in there. So you might see from that list, there's things like coriander, angelica root, orris root. These are all quite classic botanicals that you will use in gin. And there's a reason for those. And I know a lot of people, coriander is one of those things that splits people. You either like it or you don't like it. However, in gin, it's not necessarily fresh coriander that some people find really soapy. It can be like the coriander seed, which actually gives a much more citrusy flavour, weirdly. And then you use things like orris root and angelica root, and these bind the flavours together. So these bind the flavours to the actual spirit. So there's a few different botanicals in there, which you will tend to, if you look at a gin recipe, tend to find them in most of them. But don't be put off by anything. I know sometimes licorice as well, people don't always like that, but don't be put off too much by any of the other botanicals, because sometimes they're in there just to add a balance, or they're not necessarily there to be a prominent flavour. They're just there to smooth it out a little bit. And what licorice does do in a gin is add a little bit of sweetness, because it is sweeter than sugar. So it just adds that lovely little bit of sweetness without adding extra sugar into it as well, which is not what we want. So this gin it's a really versatile gin. It's quite limey, quite citrusy, but it's a really good gin that works as a G&T, but also works well in cocktails. And the thing about this one is it's a classic dry gin. So what that means is you might see a London dry gin. It's got nothing to do with the place that it's made. It's to do with the style of gin. So what this means is that they've put all the botanicals into the still, they've distilled it, and then they've just added water to it to cut it down. They've not added anything else. So there'll be no extra sugars in there, no extra other bits and pieces in there, which is, you don't really want anything else in there. Unless it's like a sort of liqueur or a blend, there isn't really the need to necessarily put all the bits in. So it's a really nice, quite balanced gin, but still really juniper led, which is also important as well. There's a bit of a question. I know that there's a sort of question and a bit of a push for some rules around gin production and what can be called a gin. Because in theory, a gin should be a clear liquid that is juniper led. And it should be of the highest percentage. So obviously there's been quite a lot of gin liqueurs around, which, you know, are great if you want something lower alcohol, or if you're using it in cocktails, or, you know, for a little bit more sweetness. But there's some that have been so overpowered in flavour that it's questionable if they're a gin. I have seen ones before advertised, a maple syrup bacon pancake flavoured gin, which I'm not entirely sure how that works, but apparently it does. So, you know, in that sense, there is some looking into it that, you know, we need some extra laws on it. But yeah, and yeah, there is a lovely peppery note in it. There's a little bit of everything in this gin, which I thought is really why it's great to start with. There's a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of spice. It's citrusy, but it's still that dry juniper taste, which is, you know, what you want. So yes, it was the Fentimans to go with it. And this gin actually works really well with ginger ale as well. So if you're not necessarily a fan of tonic, try it with ginger ale. And if you're also not a fan of tonic, also try it with something like soda. Soda's always good with it. Some people have lemonade with it. And I know some people might say, oh, it's a sin putting in lemonade or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you like drinking something in a certain way, then you should drink it in a certain way. So don't let somebody tell you that it's wrong to drink it in that way, because sometimes that works for you if you have lemonade in it. I have actually got some ice here as well, because drinks aren't very cold. Yeah, I hope everyone is enjoying it. But it's just a nice way to start, really. It's a really big piece of ice. That will just fit in my glass. So yeah, cheers as well to everybody. And the peppery notes that you've mentioned, Neil, they kind of balance out a little bit more with the tonic. And it certainly has almost a savoury note to it, which is really, really nice. So yeah, excellent. I believe I do have Holly waiting. So I hope I can get this working. Oh yes, sorry, I forgot to add. It goes with the lime there. I've had some little drawing. My boyfriend's a graphic designer, hence the little drawings, and I forgot to put that one in. Jawbox, I will mention as well, also do a different range. So I was mentioning about gin liqueurs. They do some really great gin liqueurs. They do a rhubarb and ginger, and they do a pineapple and ginger as well. And they're probably some of the better sort of gin liqueurs that we've had. They're not too sugary sweet, which is nice, but you can have them after, you know, like as a digestive over ice. So they're not overpoweringly sweet, but they are good if for a sweeter style. But I'd recommend with the pineapple one not to use tonic, to use ginger with that, because tonic and pineapple, I'm not sure they would go together, but yeah, they're really good as well. So yeah, definitely, yeah, if you like that slightly sweeter style, have a look at their other spirits, because they are a little bit softer than this. Yeah. Right, I'll just add Holly onto the stream. So our next one is Cotswolds Jim, and this is a personal favourite of us in the shop. So hello.
Right,
a lot easier than I expected it.
What's that? Sorry.
How are you?
Oh, sorry, it's not working so well on mine. I was what? Sorry. Oh my god, it's not working so well sound wise my end, but I'm fine. Yeah, just missing popping in to see you guys every so often.
Yeah. Well, we have got plans to open the shop at some point as well. Hopefully it will be after bank holiday. I think the idea is that we will we've moved the counter to the front of the shop. It'll be a very different setup, and we're having a big screen built by Ali, who's done all the shop fits before.
Awesome.
But yeah, so hopefully we should have, be able to welcome people back in. And my dad's done a full risk assessment, a 15-page risk assessment for it all. We're all safe to go ahead.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So the next one that we've got is Cotswolds Jim, obviously, which I've got our big sample bottle here. I'm not going
I should have some here. I know I'm not even joining in right now, but actually I've moved away from Sheffield for isolation. Yeah, I'm actually down at my parents' house in Warwickshire right now, so I haven't got all my stock and everything with me. And well, they have got a bottle here, but they haven't opened it yet, and I can justify cracking it open for this. No, I hope everyone's got you've got some to try. Maybe some other people watching will have some to try, so that'd be excellent. Yeah, so you're gonna do the intro.
Try it because I like this a lot, and it's one of our favourites in store. So the ones that we choose tonight are things that we know that we do really like, and the things that we've got a lot of time for. Basically, we just the ones that the gin distilleries we like, and the gins that we really are quite fond of. So yeah, they are a full-scale distillery. Not just gin. And I might pass you on to Holly for this because she'll be able to go into more detail for this.
Lovely. Yeah, so we are best known for our London dry gin right now, but predominantly, first and foremost, we are set up as a whiskey distillery. We were set up back in 2014 by a gentleman called Dan Szor, who's originally a New Yorker, and a little while ago he just decided he wanted to pack in his banking city life and concentrate on doing something that he really, really loved. So moved out to the Cotswolds, saw these enormous fields of barley, and thought, why are we not making a beautiful English single malt whiskey? So that's how the Cotswolds Distillery was born. But obviously, whiskey takes 3 years and a day, technically, cask aging, before you can describe it as a whiskey. So whilst you're just waiting those 3 years for your lovely barrels to mature and hit magic number 3, you've got to be doing something else to get the money coming in, get people that are interested in you, and put your name on the map a little bit. So we jumped on that craft gin bandwagon, and have been really going with that ever since. As well, even since the whiskey's been launched back in 2018, the gin has been absolutely booming, and I think it's because they really concentrated in the early stages on playing around with the recipe, getting it just right, and making something really useful. And kind of harking back to the whiskey side things a little bit as well, which I'll get on to. But it's really gorgeous. So it is a London dry style, which is obviously. So it's really aromatic, though. That makes it a little bit different. And something that really makes it stand apart is all the natural oils are still in there. So if you've got it neat there,
so
it really. Oh, you've got a little bit of ice.
Probably see. So I've put mine over ice there, and how it got cloudy. And in comparison to this one, so this one has the tonic in it as well, but it's gone cloudy like that, and that's because it's non-chill filtered.
Exactly.
You'll know what that means, but if not, it just means that they haven't taken out some of the fatty, some of the acid, the fatty
oils.
Acids.
Yeah,
oils. Yeah, that's it.
All the good stuff.
Words.
That's a great word. Louche. So that's a technical term for that pearlescent kind of clouding over effect. And it's just about flavour, essentially. So we decided not to chill filter our spirits because we wanted to hang on to as much flavour as we possibly could. So you've got 9 different botanicals in there. You've got the base 3 for all London dries, so juniper, coriander seed, angelica root, but then there are 6 unique to the distillery, and that's lavender local to the distillery from a place called Snows Hill, Cotswolds lavender. That's lovely. That's really what comes through whilst it's neat. In particular, I find anyway, you get a bit of an aftertaste of it when you've got it over ice. It really is quite floral. And then you've got lots of pink grapefruit and lime zest in there. Fresh zests rather than dried, and that makes a massive difference as well, because obviously they're far more oily when they're fresh rather than when So it's lovely and citrusy and zesty as well. And then you've got bay leaves, cardamom in there, and black pepper too. So it's got a little bit of a savoury, spicy finish to it.
For me, I can smell the bay leaf in it. It's definitely got that, like you say, it's the slightly more floral, herbal notes come
Very
through.
herbal, yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And garnish wise, pink grapefruit, slice of pink grapefruit in there is lovely if you've got that around. And if you're feeling really fancy, a fresh bay leaf just torn up a little bit, something like that. Obviously lime will work well as well because you've got that in the botanicals too. Even a crack of black pepper as well, that's really gorgeous. I particularly like that. I like a bit of a spicy kick in there. Makes a real difference. For me, I can't really smell or taste the bay in there until you sort of bring it out. You enhance it a little bit more with the fresh stuff as a garnish. So that's lovely. And what tonic have you gone for with
Franklin's tonic? Franklin's naturally light one. And I really like the Franklin ones because I sometimes find Fever Tree can be a little bit too harsh. I think their flavoured ones are really nice and quite balanced, but their normal ones for me, I think they're just a little bit too overpowering. Where I think the Franklin's is just a little bit softer, which I think I personally like it being a little bit softer.
No, it's gorgeous. And don't Franklin's do? Do they do a pink grapefruit one as well? Is that?
Yes, they do. They do all sorts of flavours. I know they've brought out a new range of sodas as well, but they do a pink grapefruit and I can't remember the other thing in it. They do a rosemary one.
In quite a few of the bars around Sheffield, I know they mix it with that, and that is lovely. I personally prefer to stick to a plain. Just not got too much of a sweet tooth, but you can do lots of lovely things with it. Just have a little play around, really.
I mean, that's also something as well. People often will ask us, "Oh, what tonic should I put with this gin?" And I think I'm generally quite boring, I suppose, and I sort of say
classic. That's how I like to describe it.
But I definitely prefer a plain tonic over, I think, if a flavoured tonic matches well with it, like you're saying the grapefruit Franklin's matches really well with grapefruit in the Cotswolds, but I think sometimes
it can overpower it a bit, really, at the end of the day, can't it? And sometimes I like the gin to shine through. If I'm going to enjoy the tonic, have the tonic on its own. But it's personal preference at the end of the day. It's your drink. You have it how you enjoy best. That's what I always say, especially about the whiskey as well that we do. Lots of umming and ahhing about ice, no ice, as a cocktail, on all sorts of different things. People can be really purist about it, but have it how you like. Ultimately.
I mean, that's the thing. I think sometimes people like you to go, this is how you should drink it, but sometimes people will drink it in that way, and I'm really not a fan of that, because obviously everyone's completely different.
And then they don't like that, don't like the spirit. But actually, if you just have it in a, with a slightly different mixer or in a slightly different way, it's a totally different drink. So
definitely. I can absolutely agree with that. So don't let anyone tell you how you should or shouldn't have your gin. That's what we're trying to say. What I will say is that when a bartender puts a lot of ice in a glass, trust them with it. Sometimes you get people that will have, say, 1 cube of ice, or they don't like too much ice in there. But the more ice, the slower it melts. And I just think the more pleasurable the gin is, the drink. Lizzie, yes, the ice does bring out the lavender quite a bit in it. It definitely, when it's over ice, I get that slightly more herbal note, but you do get the floral notes coming out, and the lavender and
the ice. Well, chilling it down just totally changes the whole sort of flavour profile of the spirit. So it does, you get different, more citrusy notes, more floral notes come out at different stages. For me personally, I get the other way around, actually. It's very floral whilst it's neat, then the citrus comes out when you have it over ice. But I have done tastings before where 50% of the room are saying the opposite to me. So it just depends on the palate, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's quite a compliment. Donna says that Cotswolds is her favourite gin ever.
Excellent. Oh, lovely.
And we sell this in store for $37.95, I think, off the top of my head. But yeah, and Cotswolds, they do a whole range of spirits as well. So Holly mentioned the whiskey, which is really excellent. Their Odyssey whiskey, it's quite a fruit-driven one, but they also do the Founder's Choice and a peated one that they've released as well. And the Cotswolds Cream, is absolutely stunning. So if you're a fan of Baileys and you want something, especially at Christmas time, you want something like lovely and creamy and special, it's absolutely stunning.
Like a really salted caramel sort of flavoured.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's similar to a Bailey's, but just a little bit lighter, a little bit sweeter as well. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we've just launched a new gin as well. So I've got a few different spirits to come and show you guys when I'm back.
Well, when I was looking through earlier, I did notice, I was like, there's a new gin.
Yeah, our wildflower gin. So that's gorgeous. And we've got a new, so as well as those 3 whiskies, we've got a whiskey liqueur that we've just launched as well. Liqueur, yeah. So that'll be exciting. I haven't even tried it myself. I haven't tried any of the new things actually because I haven't been able to get there or any to me. So I'm waiting, but yeah, it sounds amazing.
I have noticed as well, looking on social media and stuff, that Cotswolds have been making hand sanitizer as well, and there are quite a few gin distilleries that are doing that at the moment, or distilleries in the UK as well. And we'll touch on a couple of the others that are doing that as well. But yeah, I hope everything's okay for you guys in the Cotswolds. And as you can see, there's a really lovely looking visitor centre there that unfortunately we can't get.
Yeah, I know. Usually it's absolutely bustling. We are in the middle of nowhere. If you know the Cotswolds area at all, we're right on the northernmost edge, near Shipston-on-Stour, Chipping Campden kind of area, but really off the beaten track. But we do usually have 3 tours a day, every day, with about 20 people on each, and then trade tours in between as well. But we've had to stop everything until I think they're looking at August time at reopening that, which is a shame. But we'll get back to it shortly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I hope everything is all right. I mean, I'm guessing that the production, they've sort of switched some of the production to making things like hand sanitizer as well, but
a little bit. I think they could only really sort of produce enough to supply the local village or villages and a few of the little village shops and things. So that was lovely. They're actually delivering it by tractor around the area. It was really sweet. And I think production's kind of still in full swing. Just limited staffing. None of the rest of the staff are in. We've had to close our 3 shops as well. And obviously furlough a whole load of us, the sales team.
But I remember when I got into it, because I was hoping to have a few people join in, but I think there's been a few people in the same position really, so it's really tricky. But thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you joining in.
Thank you for having me.
Chat to you as well. So
yeah, I do miss you guys. I hope Barry and Jeff are both well and families, and hopefully see you
pretty well. And I know that quite a few people. I mean, obviously the people that have done this, they all ordered online through our website. So we're getting there with it. It's had a few little kinks, including our system taking the billing address as the delivery address. But there's a few bits and pieces with everything seems to be fine at our end.
Settling into it just before we go back to some sort of normality.
But yeah, it seems like people really like this gin over the Jawbox, and I suppose that's because I think the Jawbox is a much sort of like bolder style. It's got that more kind of upfront peppery notes and the lime, and it's a good all-rounder to start with, but I think the Cotswolds is just like a little bit softer.
It's still got a lot going on in there. It's just toned down, a bit smoother. I think it's the richness. It's keeping the oils in there. Skipping out the chill filtration process. Really does. It makes a world of difference essentially. So I'm glad everyone's enjoying it so much. That's really lovely to hear.
So excellent. And
thank you for having me.
If anyone has any questions as well that they think of later, let me know, and I can always drop Holly an email and we can.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, it's been lovely to talk to you, Holly. It's so nice to see you. It's been really
And
odd.
you.
I've been working from home, so trying to balance not
Yeah.
getting distracted in the flat. And to be fair, one of the reasons I'm doing the stream from here today is because my boyfriend has decided to build a climbing wall on our balcony.
Oh wow.
We've got quite a good space, but yeah, he spent the day putting that together. So I was like, I'm gonna come to a calm place.
Sounds incredible though. I'm kind of jealous. It just sounds good. Yeah, it is all strange at the moment, but hopefully we'll be able to start seeing each other a little bit more soon.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for joining, Holly, and I'm glad to hear you're well as well. You're all well, and yeah, okay. So thank
Lovely.
you.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Lovely. There we go. Yeah, so Holly is our rep from Cotswolds. She's absolutely lovely. We have had her in store before as well when we've done little in-store tastings. Whether we'll be able to do that this year, I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's really, really lovely gin. And I don't know if some of you might have met Holly before. She's good. She's really good with people, really chatty. And the whole spirits range is brilliant. Like I said, the Cotswolds cream is excellent. I would really recommend that if you are after something a bit more decadent. But yeah, so we've got a lot of love for Cotswolds, as you can tell. I did mention it is one of our favourites. But we're moving on now to another one of our favourites, which is this one, Whitby Gin. So I had asked the makers of this if they would mind joining in, but unfortunately they had a family quiz. There's a couple that make it, Jess and Luke, and it was Luke's mum's birthday. So really glad to hear as well that Cotswolds is a big hit with everyone. I can see that a lot of people are really enjoying it. And I would say if you can check out some of the other gins, they do an Old Tom style, which has got a little bit more sweetness to it. Last year they did a ginger barrel aged gin, which was really delicious. And as Holly said, they've just released a new one as well. So hopefully we can get that in soon and give that a try. So get on to the next one, Whitby Gin, which is just delicious as well. So as I said, we did ask Jess and Luke if they could join in, but unfortunately they couldn't today. And this gin is quite a special gin for us because this is one of the only gins that we've ever bought without trying it before it was distilled. So most of the time when we get people coming in for the gin, we'll try it, we'll have a little think about it, and then we'll decide whether to get it in or not. We have before as well. We sometimes get recommendations from customers, and they're like, "You need to get this gin in. Please try it." And we've had a Welsh gin in that a customer suggested, which has become one of our favourite gins as well. So if there is something you are thinking like, "I love this gin. Why do you not stock it? What are you doing?" Let us know, and we can always get it in. But yeah, this one is one of the only ones that Jeff has ever bought without actually tasting it, because usually people come in, we'll have a little taste, we'll just have a little think about it, because with our gin range, it could be really easy for us to just get lots of gin in, got lots and lots of gin in, fill the shop with gin, but it can be really, really overwhelming. If you're a customer coming in, you stand there and you think, well, that's a lot to take in. And even from my perspective, selling it, there's a lot to sort of go off. So someone can come in and they go, "Oh, I'm looking for something that's a bit floral," and I could give them a whole list of stuff. So we try to keep it a little bit more focused, the gin range. We try not to do everything and anything, because otherwise I think you can get a bit overrun with it all. So anyway, back to the gin. So it's a seaside gin, this one, made up in Whitby, in North Yorkshire, and really, again, another favourite of ours. Really love this. Really small batch, and Jess and Luke started it out of Luke's parents' house. So they were both working desk jobs, and they decided, I think they went on a trip to the Outer Hebrides. Is that how you say it? I think that's how you say it. They went on a trip and they were really inspired afterwards. And they decided they were going to have a go at making gin. Now, the pair of them had never distilled anything before, so it was a big learning curve. And there's also another one of the other gins that we'll do, which has a similar sort of setup as well. So, you know, there's a lot of gin makers out there that started with this idea and this want to make something, you know, really refreshing and make something really craft, but had no idea. So it's quite a learning curve for a lot of people. And, you know, like Jess and Luke, but they've managed to really build up an excellent reputation for their gin. And we really, really love it. And they're also two of the nicest people you'll ever meet. They're really both lovely people. So they're really helpful as well. So yeah. But this is made with 12 classic gin botanicals, and then they use 3 quite key ingredients which are representative of the area, because that was one of the main things they wanted to do, is they wanted to make a gin that represented Whitby. They didn't want to sort of have to import different botanical, you know, loads of different botanicals and it just be another gin. So this gin is really a gin of Whitby. And for that they use local honey, they use heather from the North York moors, and they also use sugar kelp as well, with them being by the sea. So you get a really nice balance of all sorts going on in there. The honey adds that bit of sweetness to it and gives it a fuller mouthfeel. You get the sort of more floral notes as well in there. And then you also get this really quite nice, like, savoury saltiness, which I think in alcohol can be really pleasant. So, you know, things like certain wines have that really nice saline quality. And I think you get this a little bit in here as well. So again, this is non-chill filtered, so if you put ice in it, it will cloud up. And it's not to say that chill filtering is bad. Chill filtering just means it removes certain oils. Some people that are, you know, whiskey purists especially believe that you shouldn't do that. You should leave all the oils in, but it does also depend on what you're using it for. So in terms of whiskey, if you're using it as a cocktail whiskey or a mixing whiskey, sometimes you might not want it to go cloudy. But with gin as well, you know, if you're not removing the oils, again, it makes it a little bit softer. And this is the same with this, so they don't chill filter it. It is, however, slightly lower in alcohol percentage than the Cotswolds. The Cotswolds is distilled to a slightly higher percentage. So with this one, I recommend, what have I put down? This one, the Double Dutch Tonic, which is lovely. And you can see it slightly that it's got slightly, the oils are starting to come out of it when it's chilled. And it's starting to go a little bit cloudy, but yeah, nothing to worry about. And then the garnish for it as well, grapefruit, and if you have it, some rosemary as well would be great, which I do have a little bit of rosemary here. I realise I've not tried it neat, but I have had it before, so I know what it's like. But yeah, it's the thing that we really like about this gin is that it's a good all-rounder, in that there's a little bit for everyone. So there's a bit of sweetness in there, there's a bit of a floral note in there, there's a bit of a herbal note as well, but they all balance out really wonderfully. So with the Jawbox gin, you get that quite powerful, punchy style of gin. So again, like I said, it's got a bit of everything quite up front, where this one is a little bit more subtle, a little bit more along the lines of the Cotswolds Jim. Everything just sort of balances out nicely. And then you do get that element of the sea in there, which sounds weird, but it's just got that nice sort of salty touch for me, which is something that I do really like. And yeah, I think in terms of comparing the two, the Jawbox gin with the Whitby gin, and them sort of being, you know, good all-rounders for everybody, the Whitby gin, for me, just has a little bit more complexity. But that's not to say the Jawbox one is bad. So sometimes it depends on what you want from your spirits as well. So sometimes the more complex, you know, it can be great. That can be lovely. But sometimes you don't necessarily want loads of different flavours or, you know, playing off against each other. Sometimes the simple ones are also really nice as well. And then, again, if you are mixing it into cocktails, it depends on what you're what you're mixing. Sometimes the more simple ones can be nice in cocktails because it will just boost other notes in there. So if you're doing something that's quite citrus-based and you go for a citrus-based gin, that's going to help a little bit more than perhaps a floral-based gin. So yeah, there's no right or wrong answer with this, and it's worth me pointing out that the tasting notes that I'm coming up with are my own sort of personal tasting notes. So there's nothing to say that what I'm tasting is completely right or what you're tasting is completely wrong. I think sometimes people worry a little bit with alcohol that they'll read a tasting note and go, well, I don't really taste any of that in there. What's that about? And then think, am I not tasting it properly? But it's nothing to do with that. As you know, it's all personal. So if you taste something in there, then that's what you taste. And there's, as I say, no right or wrong answer. You know, and you can. We've always recommended to people, if they are tasting, just write down what you smell, write down what you first taste, and write down what you think of it generally. So again, like we're saying about how to drink it, it's at the end of the day, it's your drink. So if you taste something in there and you like that particular taste in it, and that's what you like, you know, enjoy it in that way. So yeah. It is really rather pleasing. I agree with that, Neil. I think I like that in. I mean, I like that in certain wines. So you get certain like Albareños and other different varieties of white wine, and they've got that really nice, just salty edge. So if you're ever having things like fish, it goes really well with it. But I think for me, sometimes I like the slightly more savoury. Just, it's quite hard to explain why I like it, but I think I like that sort of, that it lingers, that you get a saltiness that lingers on your palate, which makes you want to drink more. So maybe that's why I like it, because it makes me want to drink more. But yeah, it's really lovely. And the Double Dutch tonic as well is great. Double Dutch is made by two Dutch siblings. And again, much like the Franklin's tonic water that I was talking about, I find some of their tonic waters just a little bit softer. My favourite tonic water of all time is 1724, which we are unfortunately out of stock of. But that is on the sweeter side, whereas these are still got that still on the slightly more bitter side, but not as overpowering as the Fever Tree. Because I do think sometimes that can just be a little bit too much for certain styles of gin. I think perhaps something like the Jawbox gin, Fever Tree would work really well because it's that big punchy style. But for things like the Cotswolds and things like the Whitby, things that are a little bit more delicate, I think you just need something a little bit softer, in my opinion. So that's what I would say for that. Oh. And once you put the tonic in as well, it's like that sort of sweet and salty salty kind of flavour, which always works really well. You know, like salted caramel works really, really well. So yeah, that's a really delicious one. So as you can see, probably Cotswolds and Whitby are two of our favourite gins, but not to say that we don't like any of the others, but they are two of the favourites. So you can see probably why Jeff was pleased when he got it in, that he made the right choice, and that when we thought, you know what, we'll buy some before it's even distilled. They have now grown in size, so they're not doing it out of Luke's parents' house anymore. They have moved to a distillery. They've just got a brand new still in the past couple of weeks. I think they've had a few issues in the past sort of 24 hours as well, getting it up and running, but it is now up and running, which is great. And Whitby also have been doing hand sanitizer. So if you're, they've been swapping their production to making hand sanitizer for the local community, and I think they have supplied some to the Nightingale Hospital in Harrogate in York, I think. I'll have to double check that. But they now are selling it on their website as well. So, you know, in this time as well, if anybody is looking for hand sanitizer, I know it was quite hard to get hold of. There are a lot of distilleries making it. And when you buy it from them, it helps fund them making more, and a lot of them have been giving it out to the front line for free, which has been really nice. So it's been a really nice, even though there's been a lot going on and it's been a pretty terrible time, it has been nice to see how the industry has come together and how people have kind of supported each other. I did do a big piece on what the alcohol industry is doing to support the COVID-19 crisis, and that's up on the blog at the moment. So if you did want to have a look, I can send you the link to that, or if you go to the StarmoreBossblog.com, you'll be able to find it on there. And it goes through a list of distilleries that were or are making hand sanitizer, and what other alcohol brands are doing in the meantime, not necessarily doing directly to help the cause, but whether some of our suppliers are doing some really great tastings at home, which are great to get involved in. I know Manchester Gin are trying to break a record at the moment to get the most people involved in tasting. So there's some really excellent things going on, which it's nice to know, really. It's nice to know that the industry is kind of really pulling together, and even the bigger companies as well. They're switching their production over. They're donating their neutral grain spirit to making hand sanitizer. So yeah, it's been really nice. And I am aware that it is nearly 2 minutes to 8. So if anyone does want to go outside and clap for carers as well, we'll have a little pause. So we'll have a little pause for this one. I'll let you guys go and have a little clap if you need to, or if anyone needs to get up and nip to the loo or anything. And if anyone has any questions, please do let me know. Don't forget as well, you can email me them and I can always reply to them on there if you do. But I do talk quite a lot, so I think I might have answered a few questions just from chatting away to myself. But yeah, lovely. So I'm going to have a little pause for the moment. I'll just turn the camera off for a moment, and then we'll get everyone to clap, and then I'll come back and we'll move on to the next one. But yeah, lovely. I hope everyone's enjoying it. And as I say, just have a pause and we'll be back in one moment. Yeah, I'm going to get back to the gin taste. Get back to the stream. Let me see it. Hello, back again. I'll just give a few more minutes for everyone to get back and comfortable. It's really nice. The chip shop next door, everyone came out there, and there is actually some people next door in the hairdressers. And I think there is somebody watching from the hairdressers. So I wasn't sure if it was you, or I think it might have been one of your friends as well. But yeah, so it's nice. A couple of people out, which is nice. Usually I do that. It's in Kelham Island, and when we did the whiskey tasting, so a few of you may remember my boyfriend came out with a pan right now next to my ear. Just thought we'd pause for a minute, let everybody do that, and then we can get back to it. Yeah, and let everybody enjoy their gin and tonics as well. Lovely. So I've just cleared out my glasses here. I've got a little bit of water as well. I always get asked about this water bottle as well whenever I'm in work. People always seem to think I'm drinking straight gin out of it. And as much as I'd like to be, I'm not. It is water in there. But excellent. Just wait another minute or so for everyone to get back, and then we will get back to it all. We've got 2 more gins to go through, and we've got 1 more tonic as well. The last gin, if you have used up all your tonic already, or you've used a bit of your tonic already, don't worry. The last gin, I think you can drink neat if you like that. But yeah, you don't necessarily always need a lot of tonic with the gins. And I always think in a good bar they should always leave the tonic for you to pour in, because there's no guarantee that you want it at that strength that they're going to pour it to. So sometimes people like a little bit of tonic, and sometimes people want full bottle in there. But yeah, so we'll go on to our next gin. So our next one, we have gone for this one, Mason's Yorkshire Tea Gin. So another Yorkshire one, and we've got a lot of love for Mason's. A lot of love for them. Been going for quite a while now. They've got quite a variety in their range. So you can see just in the second picture down, that's their taste experience pack. And in there, they've got each of their range in there. They do also have, I think, 1 or 2 others. But yeah, they do quite a range. But the thing that we really like about Mason's is they're really well considered, their ranges. Their flavours are not too wacky or too over the top, and the flavors that they choose, they really make that flavor a big part of the gin. So they make it a really good gin, but they make that flavor really prominent in there, and they don't kind of mess around with putting too much else in there or trying to make it taste like too much else. So you know that when you're getting for example, they do a peppered pear one, you're going to get the classic sort of gin flavours and peppered pear, and that's what you're going to taste. So that's what we like about them. They're quite upfront, so you know what you're going to get. So obviously this one, Yorkshire tea, you know there's going to be tea in there. And yes, they do use actual Yorkshire tea to distill it. And tea and gin, people, I suppose, it works really well. But I suppose in one sense you could kind of think tea and gin, and as Neil says, it smells like Earl Grey. So it does have a smell of Earl Grey to it. It does have a slightly lighter smell of it, but I'm assured that it is actually Yorkshire tea in it, because these guys are based in Bedale, so not far away at all. And I think they wanted to maintain a really Yorkshire product through and through. So I would be surprised if they used Earl Grey, unless there's a new brand of Yorkshire Earl Grey tea, if anyone knows about that. But they have been making it for a little while, so I am pretty sure it is just normal Yorkshire tea they're using it. But they do, with all the botanicals in there, it might soften it out a bit. In fact, it will soften it out a little bit. Put that in there. So one of the things about Masons as well, they've had a really tough year, a couple of years now, year and a half. So obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic and a big crisis, and they've had to close the distillery or close their visitor centres. And much like Holly was saying with Cotswolds, a lot of their sales team are probably on furlough because there's nowhere for them to go and sell to, etc. But as well as that, they suffered a huge fire in their old distillery. So that was back in April last year, beginning of April, and it took hold of their whole distillery. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. So there was no need to worry about the sort of health and safety of their staff, but the fact that their whole distillery went up was a real, it was something that could really set the business back in a really quite serious way. However, they came through it all. They had a lot of help and a lot of people willing to help, which was really nice to see. And what it actually did is meant that they had to push their plans forward because they were looking at moving into a bigger premises so they could set up their own visitor centre, set up a bigger distillery. Because Masons has become quite a recognisable brand now. They're a bigger brand, but that doesn't mean to say that they're not good at all, or they've gone down in quality. But what it did do was really force them to sort of go, right, let's get everything ready. We'll get everything set up. We'll make this great new distillery and have a visitor centre, because there are a lot of distilleries that are offering that now. So you can go and make your own gin in some of them, which is really nice. Loxley Gym, just down the road, they do that. You can when we're allowed to book on to go and make your own gin. It's about £90 or so, and it's a good sort of 3-4 hour experience. You get your own little still and you go away with your own bottle of gin. And Masons have just started to get that sorted. It pushed them to do that, and they opened February, I think it was, of this year. It's like, great, we're here. We've risen from the ashes. They did a special bottling release where the rise of the phoenix, and then unfortunately they've had a tough year. They've had to close, obviously. However, this is not to say that they're done with. They're really, really resilient Masons, and in a way, I feel like that is reflected in their spirits. They're always there. Masons is always a really good core range to have. We've had them in for a long time, and I can't see us ever getting rid of them. There are sometimes we get gins in, and they might bring out a new flavour or something like that. We'll get the flavour in and then we'll go, okay, we might not get that in again. Where Mason's range, we can go through their flavours and we can safely say, yeah, okay, we'll keep ordering that. So they are a really strong company, and it certainly sort of shows through. So yeah, we've got a lot of time for Masons, really like them. But as Lizzie's mentioned on here, neat is you do get aniseed. That's one of the things with Masons. I think they use a fair bit more of licorice in there, or you get that sort of aniseedy note in there. And as I was saying earlier, when you add in more licorice, you actually add in more sweetness, but in a natural way. So even though it's neat, you get more of the aniseed, and that can sometimes put people off. Don't let it put you off, because it can make it quite sweet. And this is really nice. That the flavours in this for me are quite subtle, even though we're saying they're quite a strong gin. It is quite subtle. So, and I like Michelle. Yes, it is easy to drink this. Again, really smooth. But the one I'd recommend it with is a Sicilian lemon tonic. So the lemon works really well. Lemon in this tonic works really well in this. And if you're ever a fan of like iced tea, this is like a grown-up version of an iced tea. Just like being in Mallorca. That would be great if we could be in Mallorca. And I'm glad that you've got that and it's taken you to being there, which is really nice. But yeah, it's just so fresh. It's so refreshing. And when you think about it, I mean, a cup of tea is one of the most comforting things. You know, you get home from work, have a cup of tea, get up in the morning. I always have to have a cup of tea. If I've not had a cup of tea in the morning, I'm not a nice person. So as soon as I've had a cup of tea, I'm okay. But you know, if you're, I've seen you go around on social media, I think if you're upset, have a cup of tea. If you're feeling, you know, you're feeling tired, have a cup of tea. If you want to sit and snuggle, a cup of tea is always great. So it's comforting. There's something in it that's just really familiar about it, but it's so refreshing as well. And you get that really nice mixture. It's got a bit of sweetness in there because of the citrus in there as well. And then you get a quite piney freshness in it, which is something I really like. I've come to realise over the past couple of years that the gins I tend to navigate towards are the ones that have got that more floral, that herbal, and that slightly sort of more piney freshness to them, or that those elements in there. They're the ones that I kind of really enjoy. That's the more earthy style of gins. I do find sometimes the citrus ones, you think you have to be careful sometimes. Sometimes they can go a little bit sherbet sweet. So but with the tonic in there, I'd say that's quite a dangerous drink because it's just so, as Michelle mentioned, it's so easy to drink. And yeah, you can imagine sitting in the sun somewhere, enjoying that, just, you know, with a couple of friends or with some nibbles and things. So yeah, it's like a grown-up iced tea, but also really refreshing, really quite subtle flavors. And the one thing with Masons I find as well, it's a really lengthy gin. You can still taste bits as it's going through. So the last point I've put on there is that they've won several awards, international awards, for this gin in particular, for the tea, 2 of which they won in 2019. And awards are really interesting. So I know sometimes you might see companies say, we've won an award for this spirit and things like that. Yes, I agree. It's definitely very Moorish. And I think if you've still got a little bit of sun, can't quite see any here now, it might have gone behind the buildings, but if you have got a little bit of sun, I can imagine if you sat in the garden, this would be absolutely great. We're having a lovely time. Yeah, so back to awards. Awards are really interesting. So, you know, awards can be a great way of telling, you know, how the gin's done, how it's performed, whether or not it is any good, whether, you know, it's worth buying. However, sometimes you have to also be careful with awards. So sometimes some supermarkets might put in their own gin for an award category, and there might only be, say, 3 gins in that category. So it can be a little bit deceptive. The sticker on the PowerPoint, on the picture on the PowerPoint, the IWSC, that is a big awarding body. They do that every year. And a lot of the big brands from all over the world, because it's an international competition, they award gold, silver, and bronze for different spirits. So it's not necessarily a case of this is the best gin in the world or whatever, or this is the best gin. They'll award different sort of categories for it. There is also a really, really handy app as well, if you're really into your gin, called the Ginventory, which you can download on your phone. And if you're ever stuck for a gin and you're thinking, or you've got a gin, you're thinking, I don't know how to drink it, it's really handy for checking how best to drink it. They give you a little bit of information about the gin distillery or the gin itself. Then they'll give you a couple of suggested serves, including a garnish as well, which usually where to buy it. The only thing that is on there is there's a rating system on there, so you can also see, you know, there'll be like someone will have an average rating of, say, 8.5 out of 10. And I have had someone before, this is in a different shop I worked in, that refused to buy a gin that was less than 9 in the rating system on the Ginventory, which I did. I think sometimes you have to be also careful with ratings of it because, you know, as we were saying earlier, a lot of it is down to personal taste. So what I'm saying I can taste, other people will go, I can't taste that at all. I taste this completely, it's completely different. So sometimes going just off a rating system isn't, or award system isn't always the best way of sort of choosing a gin or choosing a spirit in general. Sometimes it's always good to sort of do a little bit of research. I would say come in store and try, because we usually have the bottles that we've got open here. These are from the shop, and we usually have things open for people to try. Obviously, at the moment, we can't do that. But yeah, there's plenty of research out there, plenty of things out there. So I think if you're looking for something quite particular, or you've seen something that you think, oh, I'm not sure about that, if you do a little bit of research first on it, and don't necessarily go off the ratings that people, that have been given to it, the sort of awards and things like that. I think that's always something to keep in mind with that. But yeah. I will say that's not to downplay the awards that they've got, because to get gold in the IWSC is really, really good. It's, an outstanding achievement. And they've won another one. I think they won this gold in 2019 and another one in 2019, I think, for the World Spirit Awards. So they're doing, it's not to downplay the awards at all, but it's also just to say, just be wary that just because it's got an award doesn't mean it's going to be the right product for you, if that makes sense. But yeah, this is really a really lovely gin with this, and I actually think it would make a really nice base in a cocktail as well. I think you can make some quite interesting cocktails with that. Very, very Moorish indeed. So we now come to the final gin, which is this one, Tarquin Strawberry and Lime, in this bottle. So there may be one or two of you with unlabeled bottles. Unfortunately, there was a bit of an issue with the courier. They didn't deliver in time, but hey, we got there eventually with it. So, but yeah, if you have an unlabeled bottle, this is what it is, the Tarquins. And this is the little half bottle that we've got here, one of the samples. Tarquin Strawberry and Lime Gin. So Tarquins is based down in Cornwall. So it's another coastal gin, much different to the Whitby, obviously. Whitby, you get quite a rugged coastline. I think Cornwall's got a much sort of, it's got a bit of ruggedness to it, but I suppose it's a little bit more picturesque. There's more white sandy beaches and things like that there. And this Tarquins is one of my personal favourite gins. So you can see in the range on the picture, they've got a whole range there. And their original one is one of my personal favourites, because I just think that spirits are so incredibly smooth. And hopefully when you try this, you'll agree. But we've got strawberry and lime here. And we went for the strawberry and lime because we've gone for quite sort of classic styles of gins with the other ones. So, we've got the Jawbox, which is big and punchy, the Cotswolds, which is quite complex and well balanced, the Whitby that's got that slightly sort of savoury, salty note in there. The Masons is a little bit more, I suppose, interesting is not the word I want to use, a little bit more different in terms of it being tea, but then we haven't really got anything that's sort of particularly flavoured. And flavoured gin's one of those interesting topics within the gin industry. Some people really like the idea of a flavoured gin, and other people are just really not keen on it. Personally, I think there's nothing wrong with flavoured gins. I sit on that sort of camp with it, because a flavoured gin, you're opening the market to a different range or a different audience. There's sometimes this conception with gin that perhaps not as much now, but when it first sort of became more popular, gins, that's what my grandma drank, or that's what my gran drinks. It's a depressant, all this sort of stuff. But as I said earlier, one of the reasons gin is so popular is because it's so versatile. And when you look at the flavour profiles of all these gins, we have 5 different ones, all with 5 different flavour profiles, none of which I can say are particularly the same, or they've all got differences to them. So I think flavoured gins, I think they can be good. I think they have to be done properly. I think things that are too off balance, things that have got too much flavour in there, so lose the element of juniper, I don't think really work properly. Tarquin Sea Dog. Tarquin Sea Dog is absolutely delicious. Tarquin Sea Dog is a very, very dangerous gin. So in the picture here, there's the red top one. It's just a comment I picked up on from Neil that says, Catherine G says, Tarquin Sea Dog is my favourite gin ever. And the Sea Dog one is Navy strength, so it means it's bottled at 57%. It's insanely dangerous. I've had one or two occasions with some old friends where after work we've had some gin and tonics, and she's made me the Sea Dog strength without realising. I thought she'd made me a normal strength one. And you take a sip of it and you think, oh, that's strong. But after the sort of first sip, it's really velvety and the alcohol seems to just disappear. And I think that's one of the reasons, or perhaps it's not the right reason, but one of the reasons as to why Tarquin's is one of my favourites, because, as I said, the spirits are so smooth and easy drinking, and that goes for their flavours as well. I will say I am not sure I'm convinced on strawberry in gin. That to me is that's just a personal thing. I think sometimes when I think of strawberry, I think of this really lovely, luscious, sweet fruit. And when I think of juniper, so I've got my little pot of juniper here, it's a really piney sort of smell. You know, it's piney, it's quite herbal, it's fresh. And for me, I'm not sure those two flavours work properly. However, I have found that if I have a strawberry gin, things like this, the strawberry and lime, so usually if they've got something else in there, the lime just really helps lift it up and it stops it from being too dessert-like, and just adds that bit of acidity. I often find this if we're ever tasting sweet wines in work as well, or if I ever have sweet wines, the ones that I tend to enjoy more are the ones that do have that slight acidity in there, and it just helps cut through everything and lift it up. And I think that's what happens with the strawberry and lime gin here. They've got the Tarquins. So, I mean, when you say it's almost creamy, when you know, smelling it, it does smell like strawberries and cream to me. But then when you drink it, it does have that sweetness when you first drink it, but there's an underlying sort of freshness in it, and you get the creaminess later on. Drinking it neat, it's a really lovely layered gin. It's one of those where sometimes you taste a gin or a spirit and you get everything all in one go and then it disappears, where this one, it kind of builds into different flavours and different layers, and that's really nice. So I would say definitely try this neat if you can. I know sometimes people aren't always a fan of drinking spirits neat. My boyfriend is one of those people. If I put a neat spirit in front of him, he can't drink it. He hates it. But it's always worth trying it neat, because you do get different flavours and different elements from it. And then once you add a tonic or a mixer, those elements change slightly and they'll give out different sort of flavours. But I think that this is a really great sipping gin. And perhaps if you were having a dessert or something, if that's something like an Eton mess, that would be an excellent pairing, I reckon. That'd be really delicious. But if you do want to put a tonic with it, I think the plainest tonic, this one, the Franklin & Sons, would be best with it. So I'm going to put a little bit in. And then garnish-wise, obvious choice for this one would be lime. So I've got my lime here. So a bit about Tarquins themselves. Tarquins is named after the creator of Tarquins. He is called Tarquin. And at the age of 23, he decided, he found himself in a desk job. And he was a classically trained chef, having worked in some excellent restaurants in Paris. And he found himself in a desk job thinking, what am I doing here? And he had this sort of vision, an encompassing idea that he wanted to make a spirit, and wanted to make the first distillery in Cornwall for something, nearly over 100 years or so. And this was in 2012. So he decided, need to get back to the coast, need to get back to his roots, and he went there and started making it. And they have a very traditional method of making this. So on their website, if you go to their website, they've got a bit about their process, and they've got some really interesting diagrams, quite simple diagrams as well, that help just explain the whole process. But they use traditional copper pot stills, big copper pot stills, and then they use bread dough to seal them. The reason they seal them is to stop any excess alcohol escaping, because you put a fire underneath the still to warm the pot. If you have excess alcohol escaping, this is about 80% or so, highly volatile, and can cause a fire, much like what happened at Mason's, unfortunately. So they seal it with bread dough to make it, and then they hand wax every bottle. And they also, on every bottle as well, I'm not sure if it's on the minis or not, but on the bigger bottles, they also sign each of them, each batch, to make sure it's nice. I think even with the tonic, it's really nice and creamy still, but it definitely tones it down. So just seeing Kirsty, not necessarily a fan of it neat, but enjoying it with the tonic, and that, that's completely fair. Sometimes drinking spirits neat is, as I say, it's not always what people enjoy. And as I say, you can taste something neat, taste something in it, and think, not sure I'm keen on that, and then put a tonic in it, and it completely changes, or a mixer, and it will change. So it's quite interesting how things do that, and how alcohol works in that sense. But yeah, they use 100% British strawberry in this. Well, I remember, and they also use 11 other botanicals in this, and they're quite upfront about the botanicals they use. Some distilleries like to keep it secret, and, this is their recipe they use, a bit like the Jawbox. There's 3 botanicals on there that we don't know what they are. Some distilleries like to be like, this is what we use, this is where we get them from. And if you go on Tarquin's website, you can see for each of their gins exactly where they source them all from. But they use 100% British strawberries in this, and lime, and they use violet in their gin. That's quite a key element in their gin. It gives it that really nice floral, a little bit sherbety, I suppose, and that's sort of like Parma violet kind of element to it, but paired along with the orange peel, because they use orange peel and different citrus peels in it as well. It just really balances it out. So yeah, Tarquin's is one of my favourites. It could also be one of my favourites. So there's a couple that I've had, that I've drank for quite a long time now. So yes, thank you very much as well. Thank you for that. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, sort of sat speaking to a computer screen and not having this sort of interaction. But yeah, I'm really glad that you think I've done well. I could go on for hours talking as well. So if people are, you don't have to listen to me through it all, but yeah. So that is our last gin, unfortunately. We've come to the end of it. But if there's any questions at all, please do let me know. What's been your favourite gin so far? I think choosing a favourite, for me, probably Whitby, maybe Cotswolds or Whitby. To be honest, I don't know if I'll be honest. I don't know if I could choose a favourite. I think I'm really a really big fan of Cotswolds and Whitby, but as I say, Tarquin's is one of my favourites. Although not necessarily the strawberry and lime. I think I prefer another one. I'm really glad that people have enjoyed it. I think Cotswolds would probably be a favourite. It's just so well balanced. But yeah, if there's any that you particularly like or particularly don't like, let me know. And yes, Michelle, we will be open tomorrow, so might just put that out there. We are open tomorrow. We will be open Saturday. We won't be open on Monday. It is bank holiday. We're going to take a bit of a break and then we're hoping we should be able to open the shop with quite strict social distancing rules, you know, 1 in, 1 out, etc., and all the correct things in place. We're hoping that should be next week, but I will keep everyone updated with that, either on the Facebook, on our Facebook, or social media, and we'll just keep try and keep people updated on that. I can see the Cotswolds is probably one of the favourites. Neil having Whitby Gin with fish and chips sounds like an absolute treat. There's a fish and chip shop next door, so I may go and finish that off and treat myself to that. But yeah, I'm really, really glad to hear that people enjoyed it. And as I say, if you do have any questions at all, you know, do let me know. I think I've got one last slide. I've just put a little reference page on here as well. So if there are any places, anything that you missed or you think, what was that? I'll be doing a full write-up on the blog, so I can go through everything and break it down a little bit more. And then there is quite a useful, these websites are all really useful. I mentioned the Ginventory app earlier, so if you just search for the Ginventory on whatever app store, whether it's Android or Apple, and these are some of the websites that I use for sort of references. Any images I've used have come from their social medias as well, so you can look through their social medias. Some of them have got some fantastic stuff on there. And as I mentioned, the artwork, the little lemon, lime and grapefruit, and the gin and tonic posts are from my boyfriend Jack, who's a graphic designer. But yeah, so lovely. So I want to say thank you so much everyone for joining. Really pleased that everyone enjoyed it. The next tasting, we're hoping to do a wine one. We've had a little bit of, not an issue as such, but it's working out how to do a wine tasting. Because with the gin tasting, we can quite easily send out the miniatures, and you can open all the miniatures. If you don't drink them all in one go, that's fine, they last. But with wine, it deteriorates really quickly. And I'm having, you know, we sort of feel that most people wouldn't want to open 5 bottles or 6 bottles in one evening and have to drink them all over a few days. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If that's what you like to do, there's nothing wrong with that. But we are looking at how we can bring a wine tasting to people. You know, there's the idea of using smaller bottles, but we are a little bit limited with what half bottles we can get. And we are looking at doing a bread cheese wine package at home as well, which is something we need to sort of sort out the details of. We are looking at doing that using half bottles, but we're hoping the next tasting we'll be doing a wine one. We're thinking of doing a case of 6 and doing it over a couple of days or a couple of weeks. So yeah, keep your eyes out for that. Again, we'll be posting that on Facebook, and we'll be putting that on the website as well. So, and then hopefully if we can open, we'll put notices up in the store as well. So hopefully we can do something like that. And I know Jeff has been looking into different spirit tastings as well. We have ordered lots of mini bottles, so we can distill some of our favourite spirits and things into them. So we should be able to do things like a tequila and mezcal tasting, which would be really fun. And we might be able to do more whiskey tastings with some higher end bits and pieces. Because one of the problems that we find sometimes is that you can't always get minis, especially at the moment as well. And especially like some of the Tarquins we ordered, they didn't turn up. So we're chasing that one tomorrow. But yeah, we'll try and do some more. I think we'll be doing another gin tasting because I think there was a lot of inquiries for it. And it's really great to see that we sold 30 tickets for it. So we'll probably be doing the gin tasting with a range of different gins as well. So again, yeah, we'll just be keeping that posted. So yeah. And a gin tour, Kirsty, sounds fabulous. That would be great. There are some really great gin bars as well, and some really great bars in Sheffield that we're hoping we'll see back open again. So yeah, more gin. We'll try and do more gin, and 5 full bottles of wine, Tom. We can give you the 5 full bottles, and we can go through them all if you like. It's one of those things that you know, it's one of those sort of slightly tricky things. Some of our suppliers, there's one of our favourite suppliers, a Portuguese company, Marta Vine. Marta is Portuguese. Her dad was a cork maker, and they've been doing a quiet night in. So they've actually got it on tomorrow night, and they go through about 4 bottles of wine. And this, you know, they give you the list of where you can buy it, because they supply shops all over the country, and you know, they say buy 1 or buy all 4 and drink through what you like. So that's a nice way of doing it as well. So perhaps we'll look at something like that. But I think if Jeff's managed to record it all, hopefully we found a way of recording it, and then we can upload it, which would be really great, so that people can watch back to it. And if not, we'll have everything up on the blog. But yeah, really glad to hear everyone's enjoyed it, and that it's been good fun. It's nice that people have been enjoying it at home as well, and that people are looking forward to the next tasting. We'll probably be doing things like this now for a little while. We can't, whether we'll necessarily have in-person tastings up and running before the end of the year, we're not entirely sure yet, but we'll keep doing things like this, definitely. And yeah, definitely more gin tastings, because I think there's a lot of people that wanted to join in. So yeah, really, really glad you've enjoyed it. Yeah, and any questions at all, you've got my email address as well. I can, you know, answer them there. Any random queries or anything as well, please let us know. There's no query that's too odd. Sometimes I think people go, this is a really odd question, but no, don't worry, just ask away and we'll always be more than happy to help. So lovely. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm going to log off now and sort out a little bit of the mess that I've made. My ice bag has leaked. I need to go and sort that out before it leaks all over the nice table. But thank you very much, everyone. I'm really glad to hear everyone's enjoyed it, and hopefully see you soon. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.